of South Africa's brightest music stars has fallen. The legendary Sibongile Khumalo has been hailed for having a voice and the musical genius. She was so versatile that one moment she'd be singing a classic opera song and then the next make you jive to jazz. And then she'd be reciting great poems by Princess Magogo. Her death is still surreal to many. Masego Rahlaga is in Mondeor, south of Johannesburg, following the story for us. Good morning, Masego. This is devastating news. I think we are all still reeling. What has the reaction been like?
Well, really, Nandi, the reaction of the passing of Miss Sibongile Khumalo, shows you just how much she was loved around the world, not only by us here in South Africa, but across the world. Of course, we saw the president of our country, Cyril Ramaphosa, tweeting yesterday how much of a loss this is. We saw the different spheres of government also sending out their condolences to the Ngoma and Khumalo family. I am a person whose mother is actually a choir singer at church and also sings the opera. So I grew up listening to some of Mama Sibongile Khumalo's songs. So it's just one of those sad moments in South Africa, especially after losing Dr. Jonas Gwangwa just last week. It seems South Africa every single week we're losing our legends. And of course, we heard yesterday from one of her managers one of her former managers actually talking about what a principled person she was, how after the disinvestment campaign in South Africa back in the apartheid days, after the first year of the former president Nelson Mandela being at the helm, he called all those international companies to come back and invest in South Africa, and Sony, of course, was one of those, that music record company, and Miss Sibongile Khumalo refusing to sign to Sony because she just was hearing about the bad news in terms of how artists are treated in the industry. So they had to sit down with her to promise her a few things, and that's how principled she really was. But I do have here the spokesperson, the family spokesperson, as well as her nephew, Ndate Bandile Ngoma. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, and condolences from the ENCA team on the passing of your aunt. Just first of all, of course, we're meeting in very sad circumstances. Finding out yesterday that Umama was no more. How's the family doing?
Well, the family is devastated, but they are holding on. It's quite a difficult time, but they are holding on. Thank you.
And, in South Africa, we obviously knew her on stages. We would listen to some of her songs where she was featured. We saw her singing the national anthem during the Rugby World Cup in 1995 and so on. But you're a person who spent more time with her, who knows her more intimately as your aunt. What's your fondest memory about your aunt, Miss Sibongile Khumalo?
Sure. Well, I would say she was a thinker, a very deep thinker. And it's quite ironic that the only quotation I can think of now is of an atheist, and yet she was quite a spiritual person. So Franz Kafka would say that what we create will live on after we die, so that we can become immortal, So I'm sure she would have taken me on that conversation, so she was a thinker. And strangely enough, with the soccer derby coming up this weekend, I'm sure that would have been another conversation, There would have been banter going on between the family members. As you know, the soccer derby splits families. So yeah, she was a mother, she was a gogo, she was an aunt. So she was just everything to everyone. So yeah, so my piece of the memories is that she was a confidant more than anything else.
Now, of course, we know Tshepo Khumalo through his mother, a very well-established violinist, coming into the industry as well. His mother, Miss Sibongile Khumalo, trusting him a lot with some of the shows that she was invited to. How are her three children doing, including Tshepo and Ayanda?
Well, Tshepo, Ngoma, Ayanda, no Siyabonga are actually holding on. They are quite strong. So Tshepo, I guess he's actually playing the big brother role, so he's actually very strong and giving us that strength. Ayanda, her bubbly self, but you could tell that this is quite emotional for her. Siyabonga, the very quiet, gentle dude behind the scenes, just being that little brother. So everybody is trying to hang on, and obviously the grandkids, giving us that that laughter in the house, you know, playing around, trying to understand what's going on, but everybody is just holding on. Yeah.
Mr. Mngoma, thank you very much. Of course, we'll be hearing from you a bit later on in the week about memorial service and funeral arrangements. Of course, Nandi, as you know, we are going through, those COVID-19 regulations, so it's not going to be as many people as, you would ordinarily expect at a funeral of a person with such stature as Ms. Sibongile Khumalo. Usually, you would find a whole lot of guests at that funeral. You'd find people rendering a lot of musical items. Of course, she was a musical person, and you'd remember that she actually was called a doctor after Rhodes University referred to her as a doctor or a professor of music. And of course, she got that from her father, who was also a professor of music.
Well, our condolences do go out to the family of Ms. Sibongile Khumalo. Thank you very much, my colleague Masego Rahlaga in Mondeor, Johannesburg.